From the 1870s until the 1940s, there were no dates on their graves. There were no names on their graves, just a simple number that attached them to a human being long forgotten by society, unwanted by their family. We don't have dates to go by on this episode of Between the Dates, so we're going to visit the final resting places of those who were interred after spending time at the Athens Insane Asylum. We are headed to Athens, Ohio to tell this sad story, but an important story in history. And as with any of our episodes of Between the Dates, you never know where we're going to end up, so let's go along for the journey. Let's go and head towards Athens, Ohio. We've all seen grave markers and headstones, and normally they have two dates: birth and death, beginning and end. The events that occur between the dates tell the real story. Me, along with my team, bring you the stories, revelations, and history of what happens between the dates. And before the keyboard commandos come after me, I'm not driving, Angel is. So we're heading towards, it's called The Ridges now, and I believe it's some sort of art center, the former building location of the Athens Insane Asylum. And it's always amazed me, I've been here before, it amazes me how these people who were long forgotten by society didn't even have the dignity of a proper burial. Yes, they're buried, but I mean, it's just a number. Now, in years since then, people studying genealogy and some veterans groups and things like that have came back through and marked some of the graves. But I mean, here's some of the things that are really bothersome about this is, it's not only people with mental needs. We understand there may be needs for that, but if back in the day, if someone just got tired of fooling with you, they just drop you off and say you were insane, and they just take you right in, really with no testing. So, there are people in here without a doubt that didn't deserve to be here, and could have, some of the problems could have been rehabbed, I'm sure, but we want to pay a little honor to them today, because I would say this was not, from what I've read, this was not exactly at times a happy place. So have you ever been to a real true ghost town before? The road behind me leads to what used to be the community of Moonville. Moonville Tunnel used to be used by the railroad, no longer here. I'm not sure when the last settlers left the area, but it was a very long time ago. But there's a lot of interesting history about the tunnel. Of course, it's abandoned, but there's also tell that it's haunted. So if we see anything like that, we'll be sure to let you know. But let's go to the lost city of Moonville, a true bona fide ghost town. There's not much left of Moonville anymore. Basically, this old tunnel. I've heard that if you go a little bit further down the path that you may be able to see some old poles and things like that, but nothing really major. Have any of you ever heard of Moonville Tunnel? Have you been here? We're in Ohio, we're not far from Athens. We just like to give you these little stops sometime on the way to the cemetery, things that we think you all would find interesting. It's like it's become a tradition here where people will put locks on this bridge. Continue walking up the path. I'm sure that was an old railroad bridge that we just crossed, because the train used to come through the tunnel that you're going to see ahead. Moonville Tunnel. You can see here we're surrounded by pretty thick forest, and there's no question about it, it makes it a little bit darker than it would normally be. This old tunnel has seen a lot of history come through it. I don't know why people insist on all the graffiti. You see right above, you can see it there where it says Moonville. Well, we're going to walk through it. Let's go through here together. The story goes that this was actually, someone had died in here. Someone that worked for the railroad, a switch operator or something, I don't really remember. But it is said that this is haunted. I don't know if we can see the top real well or not. And folks, you have just walked through the Moonville Tunnel. And what a sight this building is. We're going to walk up here and take a look at what used to be the Insane Asylum. This is actually still used today. I mean, there's office buildings and things up here. I believe it is used by the Ohio University, but just this building and the hauntings and the stories and everything that could be told that come from this building, just absolutely unbelievable. So let's get up here and take a look at it. walking on the road, small little path, I guess you'd call it a road, back to the cemetery here, you would have no idea that there was even anything like this back here if you didn't actually take the time and look for it. But this amazing thing too, there's a few things that really jump out to me about the grounds here. The insane asylum was actually, it was self-sustaining by the employees and some of the patients here that actually could help. It was a self-sustaining, almost like a little farm. But the sad thing is, you had so many of these people that had no family, no one to care about them, no one to claim them, even in death. So, like I mentioned, a lot of the stones are just numbers. One of the first things you notice about this small little plot of land where all these graves are all of the American flags here. And I'm sure veterans groups have been able to locate which graves are the graves of veterans, which makes you think. I mean, nowadays you can be treated and seek treatment for PTSD and things like that. Well, back then there was no treatment. One of the really sad thoughts is that you had veterans here that were brought here to the psychiatric hospital simply because of the horrors that they went through in battle. And as sad as that thought is, I would almost guarantee that happened. The plaque here says, "Remember us, for we too have lived, loved, and laughed." Information about the first 62 men interred at the ridges is missing. These recently discovered headstones appear to represent some of them. They will remain here until the graves can be found. And just to give you an example of what we were talking about, there's number 9, I believe that's 19, 51. Just numbers on these stones. I mean, really, this is history, of course, but if you apply the human side to this, how sad and heartbreaking. And I know on this episode of Between the Dates, we're not visiting one grave, we're visiting a collection of graves between the dates of the 1870s through sometime in the mid-40s. They actually started having names put on here. So the dates that we want to remember today are the dates of death of all those people laid to rest here, that the graves were not properly marked, no one to claim them, no one to even care. until perhaps years later when the veterans groups and the family members through genealogy research may have found them. We want to remember all those that were laid to rest here. You can see the grave marker there, number 51. I believe. 51, yeah. So we want to pay honor to whoever number 51 is. We have no idea. There are some steps. There's actually a nature walk that you can take, and it goes a pretty long distance. I mean, it's a nice little walk, but if you go down these steps, and we'll go down them, you'll see that this actually takes you into you almost got a blooper there because I almost fell down these steps. You'll find that this will take you to another portion of the cemetery. More graves on this side. I don't know whether these are marked or unmarked. So far I'm not seeing any engravings on them, but that really doesn't mean anything because it's been a long time. It could have all washed away. Here's another stone that does have a name on it. Sarah Thomas, died November 28th, 1911, aged 50 years. I believe that's what that said. It's hard to see. Now this marker actually has some initials on the top, ST. And it looks like these are unmarked graves. Number 327, 326. Looks like someone did actually mark this. Let's see if we can see it here. Victoria Hurt, 1851 through 1911. I'm guessing, since that's the only stone like that I see here, that someone has found that in later years and marked it. But the trail continues on that way. You know, you really don't get exactly a good feeling being here and seeing these graves and these monuments. Very sad, and I do a lot of genealogy research, so I'm like a lot of the people here who have found the graves of loved ones. I would definitely do what I could to make sure they were marked, and it is good to see that some of these are marked. You know, that's definitely a small silver lining, but the graves themselves, the people We just have no idea. We don't know their story. We don't know people who truly needed to be here as opposed to people whose family just didn't want them anymore, didn't want to fool with them anymore. It's very sad. But I am glad at least, you know, back in those days they did make some sort of attempt to mark the graves. You know, it could just all be unmarked in a potter's field. I've seen that several times on my travels. And at least with the numbers on there, there are ways, and I'm not saying they would be easy, but there are ways, you know, if you did find a family member buried here, that you may be able to match it up and know where their grave is. But just it's sad. I mean, it really is. I'm glad to be here today to be able to honor those that are laid to rest here. And, you know, we saw there earlier the Insane Asylum, what it was originally called, psychiatric hospital, and now part of the Ridges, Ohio University. You saw the building. I mean, it's a haunting looking building. I mean, it really is. But I want to honor all those that are laid to rest here. So glad to be able to do it, and so glad you all came along with me. If you like cemetery and history videos, please be sure to subscribe and join me. It's pretty well all my channel is. I do some history stuff, some throwback stuff, but it's mostly cemeteries. So if you like cemetery content, remembering those who have passed, please join me. And once again, from the Ridges in Athens, Ohio, I will see you again soon. We've all seen grave markers and headstones, and normally they have two dates: birth and death, beginning and end. The events that occur between the dates tell the real story. Me, along with my team, bring you the stories, revelations, and history of what happens between the dates.